think what's going to happen is Doge is going to look at Musk. I don't think he should be playing that game with me.
Mr. President.
Elon Musk and President Donald Trump are fighting again, this time over Trump's signature spending bill, which supporters call the Big Beautiful Bill. In a post on his platform X, Musk wrote that every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and supports the bill, quote, will lose their primary next year if it is the last thing I do on this earth. Musk, who says he is concerned about the bill's dramatic increase to U.S. debt, threatened to start a new political party called the America Party if the bill is passed. Trump, who says the bill will be an economic boost for the country, fired back with a post on his platform Truth Social, writing that Musk may, quote, have to close up shop and head back home to South Africa if Trump turns the Department of Government Efficiency on Musk, who recently led the government's Doge initiative. Meanwhile, Democrats who were typically at odds with Musk find themselves agreeing with him on the Trump policy bill.
Hell has frozen over a second time. Elon Musk is right about this. He's got it exactly right. The idea of borrowing $3.5 trillion on the nation's credit card in order to be able to give tax breaks to the likes of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg is financially nuts.
A dramatic weekend in Washington as senators race against the clock to deliver President Donald Trump's Big Beautiful Bill.
It's a great bill. It's a popular bill.
The president hopes to have his 940-page legislation passed by July 4th. The House narrowly passed its own version last month, but after the Senate makes changes, it will have to go back to the House.
I hope that what we're going to receive as a product that is substantially similar to what we sent over in the House.
Senate Republicans and Democrats are gridlocked over the details.
We're going to make sure that hardworking people can keep more of their money.
This bill is a big, beautiful betrayal of the middle class.
Here's what's in the bill that's causing the biggest battles. The multi-trillion-dollar spending package would lower federal taxes and increase spending for the military and border security. But it makes deep cuts to government-backed programs like Medicaid and food stamps. More than 71 million Americans depend on Medicaid for health care and health insurance. And roughly 42 million Americans rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program known as SNAP for food assistance. Even some Senate Republicans are worried about what those cuts would do to the people in their states.
I think that the Medicaid cuts are directionally right, but I think very difficult for the states to absorb.
GOP senators hope to vote on the bill Monday. I'm Jen Sullivan reporting.
I know people are weary.
The Senate could hold a final floor vote today on President Donald Trump's sweeping budget plan. Democrats keep trying to delay it, most recently by proposing dozens of amendments. They say Americans need time to consider their perspective.
This bill steals people's health care, jacks up their electricity bill, takes away their jobs, all to pay for tax breaks for billionaires.
Republicans have a different take.
It addresses military modernization. It addresses securing our border. It addresses restoring energy dominance. It extends tax relief for the American people.
It's still uncertain if the bill will pass. Republicans can only spare 3 votes, and some are on the fence. Senator Thom Tillis says he's a no over his concerns that qualified Medicaid recipients could lose coverage under the bill. Senator Rand Paul says he's worried about adding trillions to the deficit, so he's out. Senator John Curtis opposes newly added taxes on wind and solar energy. It's also unclear how Senators Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins will vote, since they broke with their party on Medicaid amendments. If the bill does pass, it'll head back to the House, where it faces an uncertain fate.
There's a lot of us on the House side that are worried about with the Senate bill, and I think we'll have a hard time passing.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
It will be a marathon in the time frame of a sprint on Capitol Hill this week after Senate Republicans worked through the weekend and inched ahead on this mega bill that includes many of President Trump's domestic policy priorities. Still, there is work to be done. A weekend Senate vote was a vote to move ahead with the bill. The GOP saw just 2 defections, a no vote from Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, who objects to how much the legislation will add to the federal debt, and another from Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina, who objects to the depth of the cuts to Medicaid. After President Trump last lashed out on Tillis at social media. The North Carolina Republican said he won't run for re-election next year, hinting he'll also be a no on final passage. A scoring by the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office underscored the concerns of both flanks of Republicans who have expressed doubt about the bill and how challenging it may be to reconcile them. The CBO said the Senate version of the bill will add $3.3 trillion to the federal deficit over the next decade, more than the House version, and drawing the attention of fiscal conservatives. And for moderates concerned about cuts to Medicaid, the CBO estimated nearly 12 million more Americans will be uninsured by 2034. Again, more than the House version. On Monday morning, the Senate kicked off what's known as a vote-a-rama, a marathon voting session where senators can offer as many amendments as they want to vote on before a final vote on the bill. And after a final vote, the Senate-approved version still needs to go back to the House for a final vote. Remember that July 4th deadline was imposed by the president, so there's no real pressing need for it to be met other than the president's insistence. At the White House, I'm Karen Kafa.
It's a great bill. It's a popular bill.
President Donald Trump is set to spend a rare weekend in Washington while pushing Senate Republicans to pass his so-called big, beautiful bill.
I have been doggedly determined to get this done by July 4th, as has the president.
Yet the sweeping domestic bill is on shaky ground. On Thursday, the Senate's rules referee struck down key provisions, saying they don't meet the chamber's strict budget rules so that the bill can be approved by a simple majority vote. Now, Republican leaders are scrambling to rework it.
I'm not as set on getting this done on July 4th as some of the others. If they try to jam it through and the House does, and they go too far in changing what the House did, it runs the risk of it failing here. That's the reality.
Medicaid is one sticking point, with some Republicans concerned about potential cuts to social safety net programs. Democratic leaders like California's Governor Gavin Newsom opposed the bill, saying if passed, it could eliminate health care coverage for millions of Golden State residents.
I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime. This is devastating.
The Republican Party is still rewriting key parts of the bill and have yet to release the final text. Their hope to get the final vote this weekend and, if successful, have it on the president's desk by July 4th.
But I feel like the Senate's making our bill better, from what I'm hearing. I think they've made it better in SNAP. I think they've made it better in the federal retirements. I think they've made it better with the energy.
I'm Maribel Gonzalez reporting.
That Saturday night vote marked a make-or-break moment on both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue, and President Trump was keenly aware of the razor-thin margins in the Senate and all of the hurdles and uncertainties, because he had been fielding calls and holding meetings and even playing golf with a key group of Republican senators over the better part of the last 24 hours. Ultimately, if passed, this legislation, this sweeping tax and spending package, would really unlock President Trump's domestic agenda. And the White House is keenly aware that this is a critical moment to get this over the finish line while Republicans control both the House and the Senate. And for those reasons, President Trump, along with Vice President J.D. Vance, had been working those phones, holding meetings, inviting senators to the White House to get this to a yes. The president scrapped a planned weekend in New Jersey to spend a rare weekend here in Washington, where he held a round of golf with Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, along with Senator Eric Schmitt of Missouri, and Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, notably a key holdout who had concerns about spending in this package, as well as the provision that raises the debt limit. Paul ultimately voted no on that bill. But Vance himself had headed to the Senate, where he was poised to take a tie-breaking vote. Ultimately, that was not needed. The reality here is that there are deep policy divisions within the Republican Party on the scale and scope of this bill, as well as persistent concerns about cuts to Medicare programs. But the president ultimately lashing out at Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina, the other no vote. He said in a post to social media just before the vote passed that he would threaten to primary Tillis, who is up for re-election in 2026. He said, "Numerous people have come forward wanting to run in the primary against Senator Thom Tillis. I will be meeting with them over the coming weeks. looking for someone who can properly represent the great people of North Carolina. The president had also held a major event pushing for the bill on Thursday, where he went after those who would vote no as grandstanders and not good people. The president had been pushing to get this done by the 4th of July. He expressed a little bit of softening of that deadline earlier this week, saying it was important but not the end all. So we'll be closely watching how this proceeds in the days ahead as they work through some of the key provisions in this bill, in this so-called vote-a-rama. This is still far from over. Once and if the Senate passes this bill, it still needs to go to the House of Representatives, where they need to approve those changes before it can go to the President Trump's desk. So the president clearly has a lot more lobbying to do, and it remains to be seen if he can close this deal. Betsy Klein, CNN, Washington.